If you ride OneWheels, you like to send it, you like to mend it, like fix them. This is the podcast for you. Welcome to Aboveboard. Today we're going to talk about the early journey of TechRails. Matt's going to lead that one off.
So I get this question all the time. This actually came about partly because Kevin Bowling, shout out to Kevin, before last week's podcast, he had mentioned that he'd love to see a row of my boards, from the beginning to currently, and this is my build time of year, so a lot of my boards are disassembled currently. But I wanted to bring the first board that I ever built and kind of give you guys a rundown on how TechRails began. I mean, I've brought this up a little bit, a few details here and there over the last few weeks, but I wanted to give you kind of a chronological order of the way things happened. Yeah. And so this goes before I bought my first OneWheel. So the name Tech Forum Products, which is my incorporated company name, the name comes from my YouTube channel, which is Tech Forum. Not really worth watching, you guys. It has very little to do with there's a number of videos on there about the OneWheel, but that's recent. It was about the ownership experience of having, I had an early release Tesla Model 3. Yeah. And so that YouTube channel is based almost 100% on the ownership experience of my Model 3. I think I've got 460 some videos on that channel. Jeez. And still get residual $100 a month or whatever views off it. But I used to, so I came out, I started doing that, doing YouTube. This would have been 2019, I think, and when I had gotten my first 2018 Model 3. And the YouTube channel got its name Tech Forum because I watched another YouTuber called the Fab Forums. And that was a guy that does wonderful sheet metal fabrication, mostly Mustangs, really custom stuff. And the Fab Forums, really in-depth technical channel. So I thought, I don't know if my channel is going to be about the Tesla forever. It's just technology. Tech Forum. It'll be a forum we can discuss technology. So the YouTube channel was Tech Forum, and then when I got my first board was an OG Pint, and then I got this. This is a 4212 firmware XR that I got almost 5 years ago now, and I bought this board without having any plans on modifying it, but after buying it, I bought my OG Pint and then this board, and I thought, geez, at this point, I've got a few grand spent on boards. I should really figure a way to make these things pay for themselves. And I had been in the RC industry and electric bicycles, a couple other small businesses that I was doing product development and manufacturing in. So I already had connections with machine shops and that. So I looked at the board and thought, this is a really basic device. I mean, what can you do to it? I was totally unaware of the Float Life's existence. Mm-hmm. In fact, when I first bought this XR, if I remember correctly, the WTF rails weren't even available at the time, or maybe they were, but I hadn't seen them. And anyway, it was long after I bought this board that I even knew there was an aftermarket. And so, in fact, it's interesting. If you look at the nose of the board, it says TechRails here. These are stickers I added later. When I first built the board, this Tech Forum Products was a sticker that was for my Tesla Model 3 screen mounts that I manufacture. Mm-hmm. I still make those. I've sold almost 2,000 of those mounts, a lot of them. And so Tech Forum Products, again, company name, but I made this board and I just added suspension to it because it was something that I didn't know that anyone else had ever put suspension on a board. Later I found out that Kilgard's was working on their first their first suspension, and it was the real tall shocks, coil-over tall shocks that they were working on at the time. But I didn't even know anything about that at the moment. So this is a swing arm suspension. It's got 3 inches or so of travel. It is plush.
Articulation.
A lot of travel, being that it's a trailing arm suspension. Under acceleration, the board wants to jack up from the torque effect. Under braking, it wants to squat down. It feels very, very odd. It is super soft to ride, though. And but this specific suspension system would be extremely difficult to produce, so that's why I haven't put it into production. I looked at other suspension, but there are a lot of patents around suspension. So in the interim, I thought, what else can I make? And how about frame rails? And so I got into frame rail production. But the first product I ever made, I actually brought the first set of rails that I ever made. In fact, this isn't just the first style. This is the first pair that I ever made. And in fact, we didn't even have good font yet for the company. And TechRails was not that was not supposed to be a permanent name. That was supposed to be a placeholder, and a placeholder name till I came out with a better name. And I thought, well, I've got this Tech Forum YouTube channel and Tech Forum products for my screen mounts that I make for the Tesla. So I'm making rails. I don't know. Let's just call them TechRails. And it was supposed to be a placeholder. In fact, if you go back, whatever it was, 5 years ago when I first started posting, 4.5 years ago on Facebook, I was asking the guys that question. I'm like, what should I call the business? And I said, well, just for now, we'll call it TechRails. And I thought it was kind of a dumb name, but it just sort of stuck. And everybody was really excited about it. So, and you can see that they have my signature trussed rail look with the bridge trusses. So this is the first rail design had the trusses on them.
How'd you come up with the truss design?
That's a good question. So you would think I would have thought more about what to talk about before this podcast, but yes, I appreciate that, Dave. Previous to this, and you guys can Google this. So okay. I don't know how deep I want to get into this, but previous to making the OneWheel stuff, I was producing high-end electric drive systems for electric bicycles. Now, so you go back a decade back, you could buy an electric bike, but there really weren't that many of them out there. I noticed you have a electric brand e-bike. They're pretty common. I think they're made here in the States. I think they were developed in Wisconsin. Now they're in Arizona.
Yes, they were. Yeah. Minnesota, I think it was.
Minnesota? Okay. I know it was a northern state. I know they're in Arizona currently because my family's down there. So I know a few people with electric bikes. But the whole e-bike thing was just barely starting to take off back then. So I was making high-end electric drive systems that you would mount to an existing bicycle frame, and
like bolt-on or
bolt-on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and you don't even know anything about any of that. I
haven't been in your garage of tricks and stuff yet.
Yeah,
really.
It's kind of a mess, but it is it's like a messy museum.
There you go. We got to do that sometime.
But
podcast
maybe at the house.
Yeah,
you guys don't want to see my messy garage. It's like seeing somebody's sock drawer. Anyway, so but previous to making the e-bike stuff, I was making very high-end RC helicopters and upgrades for radio-controlled helicopters. I'm going way down the rabbit hole on this, but RC helicopters, now everybody knows of drones. But this predated drones. So they were what they called pod and boom helicopters. Pod, a main body, and a boom, a tail boom. So you had the single main rotor, like a typical Bell helicopter that you would see, flying around in the air. So you'd have a main body with one single main rotor, and then a tail boom with a small tail rotor. Pod and boom helicopters. So I was making high-end aftermarket upgrades for a helicopter made by the company Light Machines Corporation. They're out of Indianapolis. And they still exist, but they do primarily military contracts and that. So they were making a very durable RC helicopter, real basic design. So I started making high-end upgrades for that. And the trussed rail design came from the fact that I was doing all of the programming and CNC programming and manufacturing of every single part at the time. Now, for those of you that know me, know that I'm highly mechanically inclined, but I'm horrible with firmware, software, terrible. But I was doing my own CNC programming to make those parts, which sounds like a big deal, but it is and it isn't. So I was using G-code, which was the machining version of like DOS for computers. It was line code, G's F01 X2 Y 6.3. I mean, it was line code text, and so doing radiuses programming G-code is difficult. So I was making these helicopter airframes, and they were CNC machined out of flat panels of carbon fiber. And so those flat panels, in order to make the helicopters light but strong, we would do what the industry called skeletonizing things. And so you'd have the airframe, and some people called it a crutch. The RC helicopter crutch or vertical airframe was two side panels, and a lot of the high-end 3D or aerobatic RC helicopters are still this way. It's a left and right frame side held together with standoffs, aluminum threaded standoffs between them. So if you turn it sideways, those side plates, you would open them up or skeletonize it. And so I would make these zigzag sort of reinforcements, and didn't use any stress path optimization or anything. Software like that existed, but it wasn't readily available at the time. So I just sort of innately understand stress paths, and that's the way my brain works. So all of my RC helicopter stuff had that zigzag braced or trussed skeletonized design. In fact, a lot of guys called my first frame rails, so I made these with the bridge truss, but they were still closed off. Then when they made them open, some guys called them skeleton rails because, again, it's an industry-known thing to skeletonize things. And a couple guys still call them skelly rails just from that way back when. So that's where the skeletonized design came from. The bridge trusses was from my RC helicopter days, several businesses before TechRails. And it's a way to add a lot of strength to a cantilevered design without adding much weight. And so cantilevering means you're supporting it at one end and it's hanging over. That is cantilevered. So the normal frame rails, I mean, they're fine, whatever. But guys that were, especially back in the XR days, it's harder to damage the rails on the GT platform. But the OG XR, lightweight, real thin-walled rails, and they would bend just adjacent to the axle, because with that load, you're putting a bending load right at that area. So with these frame rails, I widened that out because you're spreading the load, and it made it more convenient to make multiple axle heights, which nobody was really doing at the time. OneWheel parts, I think right before I came out with my frame rails, they started making their lifters, which would move the axle all the way beneath or all the way above the rail. But that did move it a large amount of distance. And so with this, it was just for convenience of location, it's 0.6 inches, 0.6 of an inch of different position movement that you could adjust in height. So this broad center section was for added strength, but also it gave more height positions. So made these rails, and this was the first prototype set we ever made. And then early on, after making these, I got so many requests that I had 50 sets of these rails made. And that was an unbearably expensive proposition for me. I didn't even have that much money. So, and I was so new to this, nobody really wanted to send me deposits, and totally understandably so. I mean, I totally get it. And but I had to find a machine shop that, and these rails are made overseas. And that was just because I couldn't find anyone here domestically to manufacture them. A lot of the products I make are made here in the States. Some are made overseas. So the rails, being that those rails are 27 inches long, I had an issue with domestic machine shops. Anything over 25 inches, or 25, anything over 24 inches, they had 24-inch travel milling machines. Plus then you had the diameter of the tool, so it would be more like 22 or 23 inches of length was about the longest that they wanted to work with in order to give me a good price. So these rails, when I initially had these quoted, I was quoted over $1,200 just in manufacturing costs, just in CNC time.
Per rail?
For a set.
For a set. But
still, the retail value is like $600. But it was going to cost me $1,200 to have them made. And no, that's not because it was just one shop, and I went to numerous machine shops. I have a bunch of shops kind of scattered all over the U.S., Canada, the UK, China, Mexico. So I had numerous shops quote on them. Number one, they all wanted in excess of $1,000 to make one pair of rails. Number two, they all wanted to add fixturing holes to them, and that would be unsightly. And so I had to find another factory. So I started getting quotes worldwide, and I found a factory that gave me a decent quote. I still didn't make much money on these, but it was low enough that I could sell them for the $600 they would retail for, cover shipping, and still have a few dollars in my pocket. And so I had 50 sets of these rails made, and they were all, I called them signature series. So I wrote in script my signature and then scanned it and sent it to the manufacturer. So they laser etched my signature on every set of rails, and then they were numbered 1 to 50. I had rail set number 1, but I sold them with an XR that I had built several months ago. They were the first production set. I didn't mind getting rid of those, but I'm not going to get rid of my prototypes. And I have to give a shout out to Stoker Jones, 80 OneWheel. So he bought, holy cow, was it 15 sets of rails or something? Yeah. It was a lot. It was a lot. And I gave him a good price on them, and he was scraping together money, and he sent me a deposit, thousands of dollars, and I had custom laser etching done for him because of how much he was spending, and I had no clue if I'd even be able to sell off all these rail sets. So, and to everyone's credit, everybody treated me really well. I brought this up in another podcast, but it was tough to join the aftermarket. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of other people in the aftermarket that I sort of had to prove myself to, and I think it's because there were several guys in the aftermarket that had kind of flaked out. Like they'd throw a CAD sketch on the computer mm-hmm. and then disappear, whether or not they were taking deposits, whatever. That was before my time. But the aftermarket was, people weren't necessarily all that trusting, but they really trusted me very well. Again, I did have to kind of prove myself to some of the other players in the industry, but it was the individual customers were really nice and very accepting.
That's good.
So that was item number 1, was the rails, and then after that it was my Crazy Hubs axle carriers for the XR, which I still manufacture. Very long production life on those, and so it was quite the journey. That led into, so this was just a side gig. I thought, well, I'll sell off these 50 sets of rails. Yeah. And, if I can clear $50 a set or whatever and, make $2,500 or whatever on the deal, then that's amazing. Well, they sold better than I thought, and so then I did another run. A few people didn't like the trusses, so I made a set of rails. I just called them smooth rails, and because they were smooth-sided, I was bad with naming. I've gotten better at naming products. I wasn't so good at the time. So there were the smooth rails, and those didn't sell as well, but I still sold quite a few. Yeah. So I came out with, these were 3 degrees front and rear, and then I did 3 9 rails, 3-degree front, 9-degree rear, and that was admittedly because the tail rails were pretty well known, and those were pretty steep angle at the rear and flat at the nose. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, people were telling me that they were tail dragging going down hills. They wanted more upkick to the tails. So I made 3 9 rails and only made, I think, one batch of like 20 sets of those. They're pretty rare. And I was experimenting with different, 2-axle holes in the middle of the rail, 3, 4. A few people said that was too broad, too fat in the middle, so I made them 3 holes. And then also, right then, the Float Life, Jeff McCosker, his patent for the WTF rails came out. And so out of respect for Jeff, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't affecting his patent. And his patent is the W design, but it's mainly the upper profile. It's the flat center section leading downward toward your heels and then up toward your toes. And so at the time, by that point, the GT had just been released. So I was working on GT rails, and I completely changed my product line to, in respect of his patent. I don't want to be copying anybody's item either, but it was in respect for his patent. And I had other people in the industry tell me, well, I wouldn't do that. I would plow right through it. Don't give him a wide berth. I'm like,
it's such a small.
There's no way I'm not
aftermarket community, so you can't.
I wasn't gonna do that. So
I think you did the right thing on that.
So and that led into the first GT rails. I probably should have brought a set to show, but the first set of rails for the GT that I made, I wanted to have height adjustability, but I wanted to avoid the W profile. So my first GT rails were very low in the middle. They were kind of like the stock GT frame rails are narrower in the middle and they actually flare out as you go toward the foot pads. It's mechanically not a good thing because you're putting highest leverage right where the rail is the narrowest, but it does have kind of a cool look to it. So I thought I want to emulate that, but I want to add strength. So those earlier rails of mine, they were narrower in the center but really heavy wall thickness. And even these have greater wall thickness at this portion here. It's thicker here than it is there. The web is thicker just because I understand, mechanical stress paths and that.
Yeah.
But so those rails were very thick in the middle, narrow in profile, but thick in webbing material. But they had their own integrated axle carriers. That way that was the only way I could think of at the time to give it multiple height position adjustability while avoiding the W shape. And I wanted fenders and fender deletes to fit. And the GT has the fenders and the deletes have the front and rear delete is connected by a strip of plastic. So we copied the top profile of the rail there, copied it. We made it so that the stock deletes and stock fenders would fit right on the rails without having to trim them out for a rise in the rails.
Of course,
but those rails were $900, $895 for a pair of those rails. That wasn't price gouging, by the way. I had a few people that were accusing me of price gouging. That was just, they were very expensive rails to make. They came with their own axle carriers. Axle carriers are a couple $100 a set. So you take the axle carriers off, now you're at $700, and then it came with all titanium bolts at $8 a bolt. And let's see here, there were 2, 4, 6, 8 titanium bolts at $8 a bolt.
Yeah.
So when you take all of that into account, it was really like a $600 set of rails, but you had to buy carriers with them and stuff too. But when those came out, the OneWheel industry was really starting to take off insanely. And there were so few options out there that people were, I don't want to say willing to pay it, because that makes it sound like it was a price gouge thing. But and I even online, I'm like, guys, I'm really sorry, but this is a complete chassis kit. They're not going to be cheap. They were just thrilled to get rails.
I think, they were thrilled that somebody was actually doing something.
Yeah. But at that time then, over time, my manufacturing cost was improving. All of the shops, I used several shops, they were all giving me better and better pricing because I was ordering higher and higher quantity, and they learned they could trust me to pay, especially overseas companies. They have to, I had to wire, I left the bank to come here for this podcast. making wiring money overseas for some manufacturing. So trust had to be built, and over time, and now we've got tariffs and stuff. There's a lot of different things that have to do with this whole manufacturing thing, but it has been quite a journey. And this TechRails wasn't supposed to become such a thing.
Right.
It was supposed to pay for my board, a couple dollars in my pocket, a way to get my wife to not complain about another hobby.
Take care of your hobby needs.
Yeah. But it really took off, and that's really thanks to all of every business. It's thanks to the customer base, obviously, but it was the encouragement. When I say thanks to everybody, it was encouragement from everybody that really kept things going.
Well, one thing that kind of sounds like you did is that you took, if they gave you feedback, you took that feedback and you reworked your rails for the customer.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't like, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm the designer.
Well, I don't know.
There's people out there that do that.
And anyone watching this, there's going to be 2 or 3 people that are going to be like, he can't say no about that because I had a little bit of that, admittedly, but I tried working through it as quick as I could to get past it. And the reason that was an issue for me, it was because it was a lot of my blood, sweat, and tears went into this, right? And so when somebody would attack the design, it's almost like, let's say you have a baby, newborn baby, and they look in the crib and go, isn't that baby ugly? It's part of you. What do you mean? Is that? So that's really when you design something, when it comes from your own mind, your own heart, and you put money into it, and you take a risk, and then somebody criticizes it. It's like somebody insulting your baby. So I did have a little bit of that where people would be like, "Hey, I have a suggestion," and I'd be like, almost like my poop don't stink. Look, dude, if it could be done better, I would have done it better. Not that I ever answered anyone that way, but I would basically kind of give pushback on this and go, well, the reason we do it, I'm not going to do it that way. We do it this way for a reason. I will still explain things to people, but I'm much more receptive. In fact, now I ask people, what's your take on this? So a good example would be talking about the profile of the middle of the rails. So as I mentioned, my first GT rails, this profile was short to try to mimic a little bit more of the visual effect of the original GT rails, but they were so expensive because they came with the carriers, and because they were narrower in the middle, as I mentioned before, I had to add more material to increase the strength in that location, so they were thicker in the middle, so they were a little bit heavy. Even though they were trussed, they weren't as light as they could have been, and they were expensive because they came with their own carriers. But they had to come with their own carriers to make the height adjustable. It was a big thing. So these rails that you have were directly from customer input. So what we did was these rails, I wanted to get the price down more reasonably, more accessible for people, while retaining height adjustability and the trussed look and some strength in the middle. So we ended up broadening them back out again, but that gave us the opportunity to have 2 different axle positions, and having them broader meant we can have the web thickness is thinner, the cutouts are nice and big, so these rails are very light, but still strong, and that dropped the rail price from $895 to $695, and then they've since dropped to $595 for those rails. Just because, again, the manufacturers keep giving me a better price, and I do pass savings on to people to the best of my ability anyway. I mean, I still have to make a living, but I don't, and that's another thing, I brought this up, I think, in one of the other podcasts. I haven't taken a paycheck off TechRails in a while. I've just been pouring all the money back into product development because I really don't need to. My appliance business is fine. But I don't make huge money on my products, but what I do make, it has to be worth doing. But it was customer feedback. They didn't want to be spending $895, basically $900 for a set of rails. They also, some people had their own axle carriers. By that point, there were other aftermarket axle carriers out there. Float blocks, just different axle carriers, float life carriers, and at one point there were, I think, 6 different aftermarket axle carriers that you could get. So I wanted the rails to work with the factory GT bolt pattern and axle carrier design and all that. And so those rails were directly from customer input. Now, there are several things that people have suggested that are just not necessarily bad ideas, but just things that would never sell. Mm-hmm. About once a month, somebody reaches out to me. Hey, I have an invention, but I have no way to manufacture it.
Yeah.
And I will also say that the direction that my products have headed have been at times due to other people and their suggestions, and I do appreciate that. But I'd say 90% of what you see in all the product line is, and I think I'm unique in the industry in this way. They're all my ideas. I do all the designing. I don't do the computer CAD work. Mm-hmm. I hand draw things and then have a CAD guy do the sketching for me. But everything has been my idea, my design. I've arranged manufacturing and production and boxing and the whole deal. So I'm a one-man show, and that's good and it's bad. I know I'm a big fan of Jay Leno, not so much his TV stuff, but his Jay Leno's Garage YouTube channel. And he always says that he loves cars. He's a car and motorcycle enthusiast. And he loves what is one man's vision. When one man has the idea, that makes the design, does the work, all of that. And so my product line is a one man's vision thing. And which, to a certain extent, it's the reason the product line is as good as it is. I'm trying to think of how to word this. The reason that it is exotic as it is, but there are some negatives to it. Some of that is sometimes you can't see the forest for all the trees, and that's why I will ask guys, hey, on my Facebook page, hey, who's got a suggestion? Because I don't. I want to make sure that what's being done is what the public wants. But it was quite a fun journey. And for anybody that wants to make something on their own, I've had people reach out to me and say, I've got a great idea for apparel, clothing. Mm-hmm. Other people have had, I've got a guy that, he's a UPS delivery guy that used to deliver in my area back when I was making RC helicopter stuff. Mm-hmm. And he patented a shoe design that had, I don't want to say suspension, but kind of not. Very interesting shoe design. And I was able to encourage him, give him some manufacturing tips, put him in touch with a few people. And while sitting here before we started the camera, I was texting an appliance repair customer of mine that has an invention for the music industry. And I was putting him in touch with my CAD guy because he's like, hey, and I did an appliance service call at his house. And he's like, I work in manufacturing. Well, I've got this thing. He said, but I can't trust overseas factories. I can't trust CAD. People are going to steal the design. And I'm like, I got trustworthy people. These are friends of mine. I know them well. Yeah. So again, whilst prepping for this podcast, I was pointing somebody in the right direction for manufacturing. So being in this has been great because I have stumbled my way through how to get things designed, how to get them patented. I've got a great patent attorney that's nearby, and all the patent work I've had him do, several different patent research projects that has all been done by Steve Schurer and Crystal Lake, great guy. So I've had to find all this stuff out myself. Where do you get boxes made? I don't know. Where do you get T-shirts made? Geez, I don't know. Hi, John. Thanks for the T-shirts. How do you get artwork done? I have two artists that have designed my stickers for me and my logo and stuff. There's so much to it, and there's a reason more people aren't involved in this, but it's obviously possible because there's plenty of people that are doing it.
You make stuff that's such low margin where you can't. It'd be hard right now to bring on 10 extra people to do all of it because it's a very unique setup that you got. You're not making a ton of money off this stuff.
No, there was back in 23, and I brought this up in one of the other past podcasts, back in 23, we were doing pretty well financially. I probably could have stepped away from appliance work. The first 6 months of 23, it finally was going well enough I could pull a paycheck off of it. So I pulled a paycheck off of it through 23, and into 24, I was paying myself some. I haven't, through 25, almost nothing.
Yeah.
But that's not, part of it's because the industry dropped. Part of it's because I wanted to pour the money back in and really flesh things out. Yeah. But I have to encourage people, though, if you have an idea, like if you're artistic, whatever it might be, go for it. Give it a shot. See what you can do with it. And it doesn't have to be creating things. So my other business, appliance repair, it's in-home appliance repair. I have one full-time employee. It's something I love. I love driving. I love meeting people, getting to their home. I have several appliance repair customers that are also OneWheel customers. And they'll call me, my washer's broke. Can you bring a set of ice blocks with you? It is funny. And it's true. It's a thing. So I've also sold parts, OneWheel parts to people that don't know where I live, and then I end up with them as an appliance repair customer.
That's funny.
I got that with my YouTube channel for the Tesla stuff too. Yeah. I've installed several of my Tesla screen mounts at appliance repair customers' houses. I started carrying one in my car because I'd be fixing their dishwasher, and I'd say, how do you like your Model Y or Model 3 or whatever they got in the driveway? Oh, I love it. Oh, I manufacture that adjustable screen mount. If you ever see, oh, that's you? Yeah, that's me. How much are those? I've got one with me. I'll install it for you. So I love encouraging people to get into businesses, though, and the service businesses. When I was a teenager, when I was 12, I was mowing people's lawns.
Yeah, you
could do that as a kid. Nowadays, you don't see that. But when I was a kid, I was mowing lawns, and so fixing microwaves at 12 in the shop for my dad. That's how I got into appliance work. So a service-related business is actually pretty easy to get into. So if you don't enjoy your occupation and you want to try something, especially, again, a service business, or like my wife has one of those Cricut machines for cutting out, the industry term would be a plotter if you've got a big commercial one, but would cut out adhesive, plastic, whatever.
Plastic,
yeah, there's a lot of people, during COVID especially, a lot of cottage industries took off. So I'd really like to encourage people to give it a shot. Put stuff on Etsy. Do whatever, whatever it might be. I mean, there's a lot of people that are. My sister works with fabric, and she does dog collars and leashes and that. And she's got an Etsy store that she has sold tens of thousands, or I don't know, 50,000 or something of these things, and she's making dog collars and leashes. She also does quilting, puts all that on
awesome.
Her Etsy store.
And I think, just anybody that can take the time and come up with their own business, and sustain itself, and is awesome. Because that's the best part of where we live, Well, and that's that you're able to do that kind of stuff. Honestly,
we're also, we're in an entrepreneurial nation, and in an entrepreneurial area. Also, most of the people that I know that are successful in some way, actually just to live in our area, kind of, you almost need more than one income stream. So that's pretty much the history of TechRails. I could wax eloquent on my background and how I got into just designing any products at all, but that's a rough history of it. And I guess the only other comment would be, where do I see things moving forward? I see my product line maturing and refining. Yes, I have some brand new stuff coming out, but more a matter of taking what I already know and taking customer feedback and improving it. Where do I see the industry moving? I see higher and higher performance moving forward, and I think that now the platform has matured enough, and the OneWheel sort of knows where it belongs in the PEV industry.
Yeah.
And I touched on that a couple of weeks ago too. But I think being that I'm in an interesting spot because I have another business that's my primary revenue stream. If there's ups or downs in this industry, it's not gonna kill me.
Yeah.
So if I lose a factory, I move to a different one, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I see moving forward. I'm in it for the long haul. I love it, and that's I love hearing the history. I like researching. There's big corporations, Motorola, and some other companies that have been founded not too far from us, and I like researching their history. And you get a lot of these same type of stories.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, I think that's it for us for today. Yeah. And we are. You want to show some of the stuff that Kyle gave us?
Yeah.
That we
let me grab them real quick here.
So Kyle Wong, Chillest, great guy, and we said in our last podcast that we're going to be giving away some stuff. So we may as well show it this week. What we've got here.
So there's going to be 2 gift bags. Each of them will have either a brown hat or a black hat. Okay. Each will have its own Chillest bag, which are super cool. I got to get one of these for my wife. I know she would dig that. So
take that to Woodman's and go grocery shopping, and
I'd go
ask
all
you what
in.
it is.
Yeah. So we got a tan hoodie, Chillest tan hoodie in the back.
I love me a good hoodie. It's got to be black, though, like the one you're wearing now.
I know, right?
I'm a black hoodie guy.
And then we got just a sweatshirt, Chillest brown sweatshirt. That's pretty cool. Pretty awesome. So what we're gonna do is,
you guys make comments, send us emails, and
the best question, best comment.
Just something that jumps out at us, and then Dave and I will discuss it, and we'll vote on whatever we think seems best.
Yeah.
So yes, we are totally biased, and we will choose who we choose to choose.
I mean, this is great. We want to bring some traction to the Chillest community. I mean, Kyle was so great. Such a nice guy to send us this, and
gave some advice on the podcast too.
Absolutely, he did. He did some kind words that Kyle and I had a good phone call the other day for a little over an hour, just kind of discussing on some good things that we can do for the podcast. And, I took it to heart, and I think that hopefully you'll see some improvements on this podcast. I think, again, going back to the podcast, we're here for you. We want to make sure that we're talking about what you want us to talk about. We're going to bring up some stuff that Matt does. We're going to bring up, I think...
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, once every few podcasts, we'll do a product highlight. I've said this before, but I don't want this to just be one long commercial. That's not the point to it. It's just easy subject matter, and right now I'm developing new stuff, so it's easy to get excited about it, but we don't want it to be all about that, but at the same time, we do want to let you guys know when there's something new coming out. Yeah. But it's not going to dominate the whole podcast.
And again, once it gets a little warmer, we're going to get outside with this too. So we got some cool stuff. You know what? That's a good topic to talk about. Next podcast, I'm going to bust out all the little camera stuff and maybe a drone that I'll show you. A few of you probably have the drone. A hover drone, and we'll talk about those things that
some of the equipment that's used.
If you want to post some stuff on Facebook, this is the cool things: the nice little 360 camera, some DJI stuff, a hover drone, that kind of stuff that you would need to be able to do that. And then we might veer off and talk about some safety gear too. So that's a good thing to have when you're riding. Because,
we've each been guilty of riding with no gear, and it's a rough deal. So I really want to promote that. And what I'd like to know from you guys too is, what gear do you use, and what are some of your thoughts on other topics that we can discuss? I mean, we do have a format that we know that we want to follow, but we also want to get your input. And some of the local riders, maybe we'll have some of the people that you may recognize from online. Maybe we'll have them on.
Again, if you want to shout something out, if you have something coming up in your area and give it some traction for you, again, Aboveboardpodcast@gmail.com. Send us your emails. Send us your comments. That's how we're going to pick that stuff right there.
Yep.
So, thank you again. Subscribe, hit wherever on YouTube you can do that. Spotify, if you're listening on Spotify, leave us some comments there too.
Yep.
So thank you again.
All right.
All right.
Take it easy, guys. See you next week.
See you later.